Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about transit Jupiter, sextile, or trine one's natal Mercury. Now, this transit may manifest in optimism, enthusiasm, exuberance, truth, being jovial, and even lucky. And those things can be in harmony with your communication. So I'm going to elaborate and expound on that. When you have this transit, I mean, it could be about being truthful is really in your communications, and it can also be where you're happier when you're speaking. I mean, Jupiter is about jocularity. You might feel more like telling jokes at this time, and there's a better chance they go off well, and it's not where somebody might misconstrue a joke for some derogatory remark. Um, if you got the transit Jupiter, it was in Sagittarius, it could be sports humor, or there's something. If Jupiter is Capricorn, it could be like political satire. Just it's just a time where the communications it can be more positive than they ordinarily are, and it could be more fortuitous for communicating. In some cases, it may result in some prosperity if you're talking to the right person. And, say it's you're in a job interview or something, so the people in the communication goes well. It could be something where the prospective employer might even say, okay, well, I'm even going to give you a little bit more money, make the salary a little bit greater than it was going to be because I think you got the best credentials or so on and so forth. And it's just one of those transits too where it can also be very positive for learning and assimilating information and being very optimistic about what you can do on a cerebral level, what you're intellectually capable of without being like unrealistic in the process. It's understanding the truth about what your mental aptitude is, what the capabilities are mentally, but not going too like above and beyond what you really know you can actually accomplish. Whether you're trying to figure out how to fix some engine, or it could even be simply just trying to put some distributor cap back on a vehicle, something basic. It's something where you generally, when you have this transit, it's understanding the truth about what can be done on a mental level. And it's also a time too where this is could be very auspicious for the dealings with siblings, cousins, and neighbors at the time of this transit as well. It could be a time where it could be something where you might feel more like engaging in sports and or the outdoors with these people. The transit Jupiter, say, is in Gemini. It could be a sport that requires like the quick reactions, like badminton or table tennis as some examples. Or if the transit Jupiter is in Taurus, maybe it's something with endurance, and it could be some long distance running or just weightlifting as some examples. And this is a time where you can, it could be a positive time for the outdoors with these people. Also, just mobility in general, and being outside. And this is a time as well where this could be positive, auspicious for matters that are pertaining to the early education. It could be people that may have been prominent in your early education, and it's a time where those dealings can be very fortuitous or even prosperous. It's a time when you likely have more exuberance and enthusiasm in the interactions with these people as well at the time you're having this transit. And it's anatomically speaking, okay, Mercury is connected with the arms, the hands, nerves, lungs, and breathing. So it's a time where if you've had any of these issues that I described that are anatomically connected with Mercury, it's a time where it can be more propitious with these matters, whether you're going through some healing or recuperation stage with these issues, or you're just trying to get the truth regarding them, or just having, you know, more general optimism about the outlook on these matters. If there are any issues that are anatomically connected, you know, with this, with any of those things I described that are connected with Mercury. And it's a time too where, you know, when you have this transit, it's very good, you know, for rational thinking. I mean, Jupiter is the planet of its luck and fortune, and it's a time when you have this transit. It's where you're very, you know, just your thinking in general. It's more about, you know, being very exuberant, very enthusiastic, and but really just in general, it's fortunate for being able to think rationally. If you're in a crisis situation, or you're a situation where you need to think, you know, in a way where you're not becoming irrational, you're not getting out of control emotionally. You're able to you know, think away, you know, formulate your plan, you know, in terms of dealing with the situation, and it's more about, again, just very positive for clear thinking at this time. And it's also, you know, a time as well. It could be very prosperous for writing, if you're doing, you know, some kind of you know, if you're a writer, especially if that's your profession, you're proficient in it to begin with. This could be a more prosperous time for this. You might get more assignments, and it could result in having more money. I have this placement natally. I have Mercury trine my Jupiter in my natal chart, and I was a sports writer for a local paper for about 5 years. And keep in mind that Jupiter is associated, has a connection with sports. But anyway, this is also a time where you're going to have likely more exuberance, more enthusiasm in regards to matters with short journeys, whether it's, you know, you're running errands for somebody, or you're just taking, you know, short journeys for your own reasons, for just for the self. To, you know, if you're just going, you know, to the just going to the store, you're doing grocery shopping, you're going to the post office. It could simply be just very fortunate in terms of not running into like roadblocks and being able to do things that are, you know, without, you know, without some kind of diversion or distraction, or having many delays. And it might even, in some instances, it could result in having some prosperity if you connect with, you know, the right person during your travels, during the time when you're going to stores. Maybe it leads, in some isolated cases, maybe it leads to some kind of position or job where it gives you more money than what you had to begin with, and, you know, in terms of what you were making at your current position. Now, it could also be a time, I mean, Mercury is also about local transportation, and it's also, I mean, if you're doing, you know, work, say, on vehicles, it can be a time where it's very, you know, when you have the, you know, the optimism, you know, to get things accomplished, to be very joyous in doing so, and not doing, and not working. If you are like a mechanic and you work on, you know, vehicles, and you have certain manual dexterity, it's a time to do so where you have a lot of goodwill involved in it, and there's certain benevolence, more benevolence in what you're doing, and it's also a time as well. I mean, again, Mercury is connected with mobility, so it's a time, you know, where you're moving around, you're driving, where this is a time where you have, you know, more of the, you know, the enthusiasm, the exuberance to be doing these things. You're not looking at it in a way where you're all overly negative or pessimistic about, you know, just taking a simple ride to the store. And, you know, it's just a time where even doing things like that, basic things for local, connected with local transportation, mobility, you're going to have, you know, more positivity in you in doing so. And it's also a time where it's very, it could be propitious just for analyzing things, whether you're diagnosing a vehicle or a computer, whatever it might be. It can be more positive, whether it's getting to the bottom of something quicker. It could be a time where it'd be maybe Jupiterian people, whether they're publishers, advertisers, people involved in sports, foreigners, may be beneficial in this as well if you're trying to analyze or diagnose something. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, now another way this could manifest, it could be where you have exuberance and enthusiasm, which is Jupiter, about learning and assimilating information, which is Mercury. Let's say that the natal Mercury is in Aries as an example. It could be learning about something with the military or speech pathology, welding, carpentry, arson investigation as some examples. And it's also a time where it could be very auspicious for having the truth, which is Jupiter, about what was communicated. If something you were unsure of or something was ambiguous, let's say, for example, if the natal Mercury is in Leo, it could be something regarding cardiology or acting or entertainment, something connected with creative endeavors or children in some cases. Uh, it's also a time too where you're more likely to easily express humor, which is Jupiter. It could be with siblings, cousins, and neighbors, even people that may have been prominent in your early education, which is Mercury. Now, let's say, for example, if the transit Jupiter is in Aquarius, it could be, it could be unusual humor, or it might be humor that you express on social media or the internet, or even jokes pertaining to astrology in some cases. And also, too, this could be a time of prosperity, which is Jupiter, again, through writing, or it could be something, just with communication in general. Um, if the natal Mercury is in Virgo, as an example, it could be writing something which has a lot of analysis, which is very analytical, or it could be something pertaining to health, fitness, statistics as some examples. And also, too, this is a time as well where this could be very propitious for sports, which is Jupiter, and the use of the hands and dexterity, which is Mercury. If the transit Jupiter is in Gemini, as an example, it could be doing something with badminton or table tennis as some examples. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.